God'll get you for that one.
Maude is owned by Shout Factory.
God'll Get You for That, Walter is produced for entertainment purposes only.
Sponsored in part by Findley's Friendly Appliances. Hello, darlings, and welcome to another episode of God'll Get You for That, Walter.
And he does.
He does.
Literally does
in this episode. Welcome to God'll Get You for That, Walter, a podcast where we discuss the 1970s hit sitcom, Maude. I am your host, Tom Catt, and I am joined, as always, by my fabulous mother, Toni Homeperm.
That is I.
Is it?
Tony with an I.
And today is our episode 60.
60.
Today is our episode 60.
Frisky 60.
Frisky 60. That's a cute one. I'll have to remember that when I turn 60.
Yes.
You'll be dead by then.
I will. But you can tell
I
me.
will remind myself.
Not too far off in the future.
Not the distant future.
I wish.
And we're going over today Maude's new friend.
Yes,
which is
season 3, episode 12.
Yep.
Which you can watch on Tubi TV.
Yes,
for
you
free.
Can watch these. You can watch seasons 3 and 4 on Tubi TV for free, and you could watch seasons 1 and 2 on
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime. What is it called? Freevee.
Yes.
Freevee.
Yes. There are commercials.
There are commercials that are sometimes properly timed, and sometimes they're not so properly timed.
Yeah, this one really wasn't in this one, but like we said, you can watch it for free.
Yes, you can watch this for free. And it originally aired December 2nd, 1974. Directed, of course, by Hal Cooper, and written by Norman Lear and Rod Parker. With guest star Robert Mandan.
Yes.
Who was very famous for doing all sorts of television acting on soap operas and
the show
Soap with Billy Crystal.
Who's the Boss?
The Golden Girls.
Murder, She Wrote.
Murder, She Wrote.
So many.
Just a laundry list of acting on television.
Three's Company, Three's a
Crowd.
I mean, he's one of those actors that, he was everywhere.
Truly everywhere.
And you just recognize him.
And he played the character Barry Witherspoon in this episode.
Yes.
What'd you think of the episode?
It was cute.
I enjoyed it.
There were some interesting things.
I definitely think it pointed out the hypocrisy between the liberal mind and the conservative mind.
Yes.
This episode does deal with homosexuality, which is appropriate considering we are still very much in the month of Pride, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
And in my opinion, it is definitely a good episode.
Yes.
It is a well done episode.
Yes, I would attest to that.
Because again, it definitely points out the balancing act between liberalism and conservatism in terms of homosexuality. So the episode opens with Maude looking at herself in the mirror, holding up this very interesting brown outfit. It was brown with a brown vest that had this fascinating pattern in the vest itself.
The earth tone colors were so popular at that time. The browns,
Very
the oranges,
much so.
the avocados,
Yep.
the harvest gold.
Oh yes.
I mean, it was everywhere in home furnishing, fashion.
I was in HomeSense most recently, and that sort of harvesty gold, sort of like dark yellow, was like really coming back into vogue, and I'm like, I don't want it. Please don't bring it back.
It's coming.
Like everything, it's all coming back to me now.
And Maude has a little song that she's singing.
It's impossible for Maude Findlay to go braless. It's impossible. Who originally sang It's Impossible? Was it Julio Iglesias?
No.
Not Julio Iglesias.
I'm pretty sure it was Frank Sinatra.
Yes.
But it was one of those songs, back then, a lot of those sort of
ballads.
Lounge sort of, loungy singers.
Yes.
Like Frank Sinatra, was it Andy Lawrence, all those kind of singers. Perry Como. They all did the same songs.
Yeah.
Those kinds of, classics.
Lounge acts.
They all did that.
Standards.
All did those standards. So, but I think probably Frank Sinatra is one of the most famous versions.
Yeah. Who actually gets a shout out in this episode.
He does. Apropos.
So, she's waxing sentimental about how she is very largely breasted and she has to wear bras.
And Walter comes
in. Walter enters and he's sucking on his teeth.
Sucking his teeth.
Sucking on his teeth. I suck on my teeth all the time.
Oh, do you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't do that.
I learned that from my mother.
Okay.
And he says that he has a caraway seed stuck in his teeth.
Stuck in his back teeth. One thing I tell you, I hate when I get something stuck in a tooth.
I hate it.
I cannot stand it.
Hilariously enough, I actually had corn yesterday. Me going to the bathroom proved that this morning.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Truly the gift that keeps on giving.
You know, that's the only thing that could probably kill me.
So, he is asking where the dental floss is, and, he's arguing with Maude, saying, I can never find anything in that medicine cabinet. Right. And Maude says, it's on the right-hand side. Mm-hmm. That's where I keep all dental wares on the right side of the medicine cabinet. Mm-hmm. And I think Walter asks why she did that. Mm-hmm. And Maude says, since the last time you gargled with my Lydia Pinkham. Which we found out. I initially thought I thought it was a perfume. You thought it was a perfume, but it is not. But it is not. It is a vitamin drink that you drink to relieve menstruation and menopause symptoms. And that only made the joke funnier.
Even funnier.
It only made the joke funnier.
Yes.
So we come to find out that, Maude is getting ready for this evening because she's having her friend Barry over.
Yes, Barry for cocktails.
Barry over for cocktails.
And Walter's
it's funny that we mention, Maude's new friend, because there was that episode of Golden Girls where it was Dorothy's new friend. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of similar. How it was this?
Was that the one?
It was another author, Barbara Thorndike.
Barbara
it was another author.
Yes,
who was very intellectually the same as Dorothy.
Yes, and we've got a similar.
It was a similar vibe, similar storyline. It was just at the end. Maude was sort of the quote-unquote Barbara Thorndike character and not the Dorothy character. So it was a very interesting juxtaposition, but very similar at the same time.
Yes. Yes.
So while Maude is putting on her eyelashes and putting on her mascara, Walter is irate.
He's irate. He's like, Barry Witherspoon? Barry Witherspoon?
Not Barry Witherspoon, Maude.
He's conceited. He's pompous. So we learn very quickly, Walter does not like Barry Witherspoon.
Yep. And Maude says, I knew you'd be pleased.
Yes.
So
we find out it's just going to be Arthur coming over.
Yep, just Arthur coming over for dinner.
Vivian took Chuck to
the dog show. Took Chuck to the dog show.
Not to enter him. He just likes to look.
He just likes to watch.
Yes, he's like, dog voyeur.
A wire-haired voyeur. Such an me and my cousins were actually talking last night about how we pronounce certain words. Mm-hmm. And, being a B. Arthur impersonator, I have changed the way that I've said certain words. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't say advertisement, I say advertisement. Mm-hmm. I don't say program, I sometimes say program. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. Voyeur is another one, because I would personally just say voyeur, or voyeurism, not voyeurism. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. It's just interesting how the mouth works and how
and do you say private sector?
You love making fun of me when I talk and while I write at the same time.
It tickles me, pussy. So Walter he's yelling at Maude. He said, "You promised no more Barry Witherspoon."
No more Barry Witherspoon.
And we find out that Maude is explaining he's a best-selling novelist,
and that and Walter feels that he's an egotistical know-it-all.
Mm-hmm. And Walter's saying, "Well, he's just a best-selling novelist in this town
because of you, Maude."
Yeah, she made everybody
nagged half the town to buy his book,
buy his novel.
She called him a bonsai.
Yeah, she said, Walter, you're being a very small man. That's why she called him a bonsai.
She called him a bonsai.
Mm-hmm. And she says, Barry is fascinating. He's much more fascinating than
those dumb sports articles. And, Walter's like, those articles are not dumb. Yes. So Maude picks up the magazine and says, Joe Namath, How to Make Love with Your Helmet on.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the audience has a right laugh over that.
Walter is sick of Barry putting him down. So we find out that apparently, whenever Barry's around, he pokes fun at Walter. He puts him down.
Yep.
And we come to find out that I don't think was ever discussed before that Walter
never graduated high school.
So and considering that he's got his own business and everything, that's pretty good.
That's I would say so.
Good
but I mean, we never actually. I don't know if there's any episode where we find out that how long Finley's Friendly Appliances has been open. Like, there's no Finley's Friendly Appliances established such and such a date.
Right.
So we really don't know when or how Walter really got into the appliance.
Right.
The appliance occupation.
Yes.
So, the appliance business.
But it's also interesting to think, because, I think like it's discussed, like Maude went to college.
She graduated from college. She graduated with a degree in romance languages.
Right. And, for her to be with somebody like Walter, who never even graduated college.
Yep.
It's, finding this out, it's a little interesting, because it's like, in real life, it would be kind of.
I would still say that it's a very modern romance, because you would definitely see that more today than anything else.
Yeah, do you think?
I agree. I think so.
You would see like people like you think you see that more, like people that
I definitely
have graduated.
I definitely see the classes meshing more today than during the 70s. Because years ago, during the 70s, it was more like you would date within your class. You would not date outside of your class.
Yeah. But I wonder how the relationships actually fare when you've got that sort of dichotomy.
True.
I mean, granted, a lot of times in a relationship, you've always got that initial attraction.
Yes.
But then, the more people get to know each other, it's like...
Well, think about it this way. They were introduced by Arthur.
Right.
So Arthur was friends with Walter. because of the military.
Right.
So, Walter having been in the military could have definitely been a interesting thing that the two of them would have bonded over, I would imagine.
Walter and Arthur?
Walter and Maude. Because I'm trying to remember what Maude's history was. Because I don't know if it was a joke, but remember, and I think like the first episode where that one gentleman who's played by that one actor who's still alive,
Ed Begley Jr.
Thank you.
When she said she was a newscaster in the war,
something to that effect.
Yeah.
She knew every single battalion.
Yes. Right.
So again, that could have definitely been a bonding factor for the both of them, because they were both pseudo involved in the military.
Yeah, I guess. I'm just saying, like, in the real world perspective, I don't know if like somebody who's like very well educated and somebody who hasn't even graduated high school.
I mean, street smarts.
Yeah, it's like, I think in the real world though, it would be difficult. I'm not saying impossible.
It would be an interesting dynamic.
I feel like the person that hasn't graduated high school might feel intimidated, by being with somebody who's got a college degree.
Even in, as we've seen in the episodes prior,
especially where it's the woman who has the degree,
the education,
and the man doesn't.
But I mean, even in other episodes, we definitely see that sort of like Maude is very highbrow. She's whereas Walter is very lowbrow. So there's definitely that push and pull between the two of them.
True.
So I mean, granted, when you take out the domestic abuse and the arguing and all that fun stuff, I think genuinely deep down there is a connection between the two of them, whether it's based in the military, whether it's based in how they operate, because obviously they have a very healthy sexual.
Yes, we know that.
Life.
We know that. I'm just saying, in the real world, it's like I don't know. I think it would be
complicated.
It would be a complicated relationship.
I don't know. I mean, I've dated people that are less intelligent than I am. I've dated people that have. I went to college. I did not graduate college.
Mm-hmm.
I have gone to vocational school, and I've dated people that are college graduates that have multiple degrees. I've dated people that have not graduated high school. I have dated and it really depends heavily on the shared interests and the the dynamic between how the two of us operate on all levels. So it really depends on the individual at that point.
True.
We are the Dr. Ruth Westheimers of the modern generation, and we stand by our convictions.
Oh my!
So,
Maude is accusing Walter of being a very, very small man. He's like an American bonsai.
Yep.
She insists that Barry is fascinating. We got through all about the Joe Namath story, making love with
and we come to this very fascinating bit between Maude and Walter. And Walter is trying very hard to floss. And he's like, you can't shove like, how do the dental floss people figure out that you can't shove 4 fingers into your mouth?
Right.
So Maude, in her infinite wisdom, says there's a very simple way to use dental floss.
First he asked her to do it for him.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Yes.
She's refused.
Walter, they had said to love, honor, and cherish in sickness and in health. I don't recall saying anything about getting food particles out of your mouth.
Exactly. So he's saying that fine. He's just going to suck his teeth all night in front of Barry Witherspoon.
And he goes, how would you like it if it was just this the entire night?
Yeah, and he's sucking his teeth. So Maude now, she comes up with, she tells him she has a
simple way to use dental
floss. And
so she says, go get a sewing needle out of my sewing kit.
Sewing needle.
And put the thread through the eye of the needle.
Right.
And he is looking at it with and Maude then says, Walter, do you need your glasses, or does crossing your eyes turn you on? So he finally gets it threaded.
Yes.
And he says, now take 2 fingers.
Maude tells him, take 2 fingers.
Put them in your mouth. With the other hand, feed the needle through your ear canal. And he starts to do it, and he's just like, you're very funny, Maude.
He said, you did that deliberately.
She did that deliberately. She said, Walter, I did that deliberately.
Yes.
And you don't hate me. You love me, right?
Yes.
And I think at that point he goes into
He goes off to start gargling. That's when the phone rings.
Yes.
And it's Barry.
It is Barry.
And Maude is her typical, the typical way she is on the phone.
Hello, Barry!
Barry, are you going to be a little late? And she's telling him that Dr. Harmon will be
coming over for cocktails. And while she's trying to have this conversation with Barry, Walter is gargling quite obnoxiously.
So Maude tells Barry that she has to forgive the noise. Walter is doing his impression of
Jacques Cousteau getting the bends.
Yes.
What are the bends?
Oh. When you're deep sea diving, if you go really, really far down, if you come up too fast,
yes,
you can get nitrogen bubbles in your blood.
Interesting.
Yes, and it can, if it's severe enough, I think it can kill you.
Yes.
So that's what the bends are.
Interesting. Never knew that.
Yes.
Never knew.
They have to put you in like a hyperbaric tank or something. Yeah.
I remember that in the completely and totally off topic, sort of. 1001 Ways to Die actually had it where a woman was in the hyperbaric chamber and she was really trying to figure everything out. But someone opened the hatch too soon and she ended up exploding.
No. That's ridiculous.
Did that not happen?
No.
I have to look it up because it was something similar to that. Something similar to that happened. Something happened where that, it was on FX. I'm just going based off of what the television told me, what the speaking box told me.
You do know FX is part of Fox News.
Oh, please.
Okay.
But Archer was also on Fox, and so was Family Guy, and so was The Simpsons.
Oh, my Lord. Walter comes out and he's hears Maude is on the phone with Barry, so he's got to start gargling
right there.
And of course, Maude has to tell him.
Maude turns to him and says, "God will get you for that, Walter."
And he does, because then Walter starts to choke.
Walter starts choking.
It's the first time we ever saw divine interference.
Yep. So Maude looks up at the ceiling and does the A-OK symbol. She gives him the OK symbol.
To God.
So that was quite entertaining.
So she tells Barry, yes, it's just going to be a
quiet evening.
Okay. Now Walter comes back out and he's saying he's not going to have dinner with Barry, and Barry gets pleasure out of putting him down, and then they go into this whole thing.
I think Maude calls him a ninny.
She might have.
Maude calls him a ninny.
They go into this whole thing where Walter
does not know the difference between infer and imply.
Yes, and that's when we get to the Walter saying, "Are you inferring that I'm a ninny?"
And Maude says, "No, I'm implying you're a ninny. You're inferring
you're a ninny."
So I think at that point, Maude then looks in the glass and says, "Oh, Walter, you don't have to worry about getting dandruff this evening.
Yes,
getting dandruff on your tongue this evening,
in your mouth,
because you're gargling with my Head and Shoulders."
Gargle with Head and Shoulders.
I was tickled by that.
Nobody's gonna gargle with Head and Shoulders.
No one's gargling with Head and Shoulders.
No. So then we cut to downstairs, the living room.
Yep.
Carol's on the couch.
And she's reading, obviously, Barry's book.
And Mrs. Naugatuck is letting Arthur in. And then they're having a little bit of a discussion, and Sigmund Freud came up.
Yeah, because Arthur wants to have Barry autograph the book that was being read, and I think somewhere along the way, Mrs. Naugatuck mentions how she was being analyzed by Sigmund Freud because I think Mrs. Naugatuck had a book that was autographed by Sigmund Freud, because I think that was the only celebrity that Mrs. Naugatuck actually had autographed something of hers.
Book.
So, again, Carol is being Carol and asking questions like, why would Sigmund Freud autograph something of yours? So I think Mrs. Naugatuck goes on this wild explanation, as she always does.
Always.
And before she leaves, she says, "Never trust a doctor who has a couch in his office." And then she exits, and, they just have that moment where it's like, Mrs. Naugatuck is Mrs. Naugatuck.
So, Maude and Walter, they're coming down from the bedroom. They're arguing on the stairs.
Because, of course, they are. And I think this is where we find out a very crucial bit of information about Barry.
Walter's going on that he's not going to spend the evening with Barry.
Yep.
And Arthur's saying, "Oh, but he's a famous novelist.
He was featured in Woman's Wear Daily."
Yes, featured in Woman's Wear Daily.
And Walter says, what did Walter say?
He says, "What kind of dress was he wearing?"
And the audience just gasps and oohs, and Maude is furious.
Yes, she's pissed.
She is pissed.
Yes.
And so, Maude then says, "You don't have a problem with Barry because he's rude. You have a problem with him because he's a homosexual."
Why is it when we get to that word, it has to be whispered? It has
to be whispered because that's how Maude said it.
Yes. Because he's a homosexual. It has to be whispered.
So,
said in hushed tones.
Must be said in hushed, whispered tones.
Yes. And Mrs. Naugatuck is the first one to be like,
I adore gay people. And the audience erupts in laughter. And she says, "They're much more fun than bullfighters."
Yes. Walter is saying he resents Maude accusing him of
prejudice, of being prejudiced.
Because he's gay. And now Arthur is like, Witherspoon is, and he does the hand.
He does the
thing.
hand thing.
The limp wrist thing.
The limp wrist thing.
I never understood that.
I don't get
Why
it.
do we get like characterized
I don't know.
by a limp wrist?
I really don't know.
I don't walk around with a limp wrist.
I do. And do you know? Oh my God. When I was growing up, I had to look at my wrist sometimes, and if I noticed that it was a little limp, I would hide it. It was, I don't know what it is. It's just something that I do unconsciously. I blame Disney villains.
Well, I know there were a lot of characteristics that I had as a kid that I quickly learned I had to hide.
You want to know what one of the characteristics was that I knew that I was different?
What?
I enjoyed the taste of penis.
What flavor did you try? I always enjoyed the cherry lime Ricky myself.
It was the White Russians for me. Oh, now I don't discriminate. I have White Russians and Black Russians.
Yes, it's all delicious.
Oh my goodness gracious. I wanted to deliver that so straight faced, and like before I got to penis, I'm like, I'm just gonna crack up laughing. I'm gonna crack. But I mean, truly, we are stereotyped so horrendously in modern day media, and I'm so grateful that like Will and Grace sort of broke that. And another somewhat another show that sort of like didn't tokenize us was The Nanny. The Nanny did not tokenize gay people,
right?
Did not tokenize the LGBT community at all. And for that I am eternally grateful. Because, like, since The Nanny, since Will and Grace, like, we are seeing more and more,
representation.
More and more representation where we're not so much made mainstream or normalized, but we are no longer looked at as a caricature.
Right.
We are no longer looked at as a caricature. And you could say the same thing about the Black community, the trans community, we are no longer being stereotyped. And I am very happy about that. I don't know what's going to happen now with the Supreme Court going the way the Supreme Court is going.
God only knows.
But it is nice to no longer be stereotyped. And even in this episode, the character of Barry was not
effeminate.
Was not stereotypical in the slightest.
Wasn't like a Paul Lynde or a Charles Nelson Riley.
Exactly. It wasn't like a Just Jack situation.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, this is a show that was in the 70s, and you know, you would see in certain episodes, like not in certain episodes, you would see in certain show, like what would be a good example of a stereotyped queer character that I wouldn't necessarily use Paul Lynde in Bewitched, but you could most assuredly use Paul Lynde in Bewitched.
Definitely. Anytime you saw Charles Nelson Riley in something.
Anytime Charles Nelson Riley was in anything.
I mean, that's usually what you got. That was our only representation, really.
And then we had Liberace.
Yes.
But again, that was a very honestly, I truly believe that Liberace became a caricature of himself.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I think it just became so it became so obvious after a while.
Yeah. And and of course he did like articles saying like, oh, he still
wrote his book.
Yeah, and still trying to find the right woman.
He wrote the book where he was like in love with his his associate.
He was engaged to a woman for a while, but they never actually got married.
Yeah.
I think in one of the movies it was like her father knew like what he was and he like put an end to it.
Yeah.
He didn't want his daughter marrying him. And obviously he had many gay affairs.
Gay affairs.
And he
many
just
gay affairs.
kept it hidden.
I remember
So did Rock Hudson. So did Montgomery Clift.
So did Montgomery
James
Clift.
Dean.
Grant,
was one of the only ones that was open about it. He really didn't hide it.
Yeah.
He didn't really hide it. But when did you know you were gay?
When did I know?
When did you know?
Well, that is a loaded question there.
Mm-hmm.
There's two answers to that.
Mm-hmm.
There's two answers to that. It was probably when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my neighbor friend at the time would play doctor. Mm-hmm. And we played it a little too well.
Is this another boy or a girl?
Oh, it's another boy.
Another boy.
And then our families found out. And I was told point blank by both of my parents, don't do that, you'll get sick. Oh. Now, this was during the, early 90s. We are still very much
in the AIDS epidemic.
We are still in the AIDS epidemic era. We were just fresh out of Reagan's administration.
Right.
So, the fear was still very much prevalent. Yeah. So, when my family found out, they immediately put their foot down. And, even as I continued to get older, and again, I'm going to use Disney villains because that was, my family loved Disney. My family loved Disney films. So when I was younger, we had all the VHSs, and I would watch The Little Mermaid, 101 Dalmatians, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Cinderella. And I would watch these cartoons, and I would watch these animated feature films, and I would see these very, domineering, powerful women in charge. And I was like, I want to be like that. I want to be like the funniest story. When I was younger, I think I may have said this in previous episodes. When I was younger, I was obsessed with The Little Mermaid. I loved the character of Ursula. Loved her so much. Reminded me so much of my grandmother because, again, my grandmother was a well-rounded woman. She was not thin by any stretch of the imagination, and she always led with her chest. My grandmother was also a singer, and she had wild, outrageous hair, heavily painted makeup. So it's like, oh, that's my grandmother.
That's grandma.
That's mom. As a matter of fact, there was a picture that I posted on DeviantArt years ago of a character performer as Ursula. And again, had the heavily painted lips, the big eyes, the big hair. And I'm like, that looks like my grandmother. And, even when I was old, even as I, continued to age, I looked at my mother and I was like, Mom, who was my favorite Disney character? And she would turn around and she would just look at me with this hapless expression and she'd say, Thomas, your favorite character was Ursula. I'm like, okay, I'll accept that. So again, I would gravitate towards these, very aggressive female characters. And even when, me and my friends would, dress up and play as those characters, I would always be Ursula, Maleficent, the Evil Queen. There was one day, me and my friends were, playing Cinderella. And I looked at my friend who had all of these costumes and whatnot, and I said, can I have a costume as well? I'll be the Wicked Stepmother. Right. I didn't know what the character's name was. I just said the Wicked Stepmother. And I had to run home to go to the bathroom. Now, mind you, I am in this fuchsia, hot pink ball dress with a tulle skirt and whatnot. And of course, I don't know how to go to the bathroom on my own. I'm a baby at this point. And I go into the bathroom with my father, and my father whispers in my ear, boys aren't really supposed to dress up like this. So I have always sort of known. Right. But it really didn't become prevalent until I was in my teens and, hormones and what they do. Right. And, that was sort of the tip for me. It wasn't so much the dressing up as it was, I am attracted to men. Because I do know that look at Matty Morphosis, there are straight men out there that do dress in drag. True. And, even actors in the World's Theater years ago, they played the female characters, what have you. But for me, I hate saying I've always known because there was that brief period between the age of 11 and 15 where I was like, I'm straight. I have to be straight. Oh, maybe then after my teens, I was like, oh, maybe I'm bi. And that I never had sex with a woman. Ever. Made out with? Sure. Sex? No.
Oh, so you're platinum gay.
Sure. I guess we'll go with that expression. And it was just one of those things where I'm like, this is who I am. I covered because I was not out and proud as a gay man in high school. I was out and proud as an Italian in high school. I became devout in my culture. I wanted to educate myself on all things Italian. It was incredibly obnoxious. Incredibly obnoxious. It was not fun. I was a very pretentious teenager. But I did not become out and proud until like well after college. I came out 3 times. I've mentioned this. I know I've mentioned this before. I came out 3 times to my family. Once when I was 21, once when I was 23, and another time when I think I was 24. It was the same year. But I did it once at 23. Then I had my birthday. Then at 24, I wrote my family a letter. I was just like, "Hey, this is who I am. Fucking deal with it.
This is me."
So it was, yeah. To answer your question, that was when I knew. I guess I sort of always knew.
Yeah, I always knew I was different.
Yes.
Always knew I was different. I initially didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But then,
Because there's no instruction manuals on how to come out.
No.
There were no instruction manuals on how to come out in the 70s or in the 90s.
No, I mean, in the 70s, there was nothing. I just knew it was like, and I always wanted to do things that girls did. Not that I wanted to be a girl.
Yes.
I never had like gender dysphoria or anything like that. I never felt like I was a boy in a girl's body or anything like that. I was always, secure in that, I was a boy. But it was just that they were like girl things that I wanted to do. I never wanted to do any boy things. I hated sports. Never wanted to play football, baseball, basketball. I wanted to be.
You're petite.
Yes.
You're petite. You were probably told that it would like doing sports would man you up.
Oh yeah.
And there were times like when people would ask me, because I'm a skyscraper, they would say, "Oh, why didn't you go out for football? Why didn't you go out for basketball?" I'm like, "Because I don't feel like getting injured.
Yeah.
I can get injured all on my own if I just behave like myself."
Yes. Just wearing your high heels.
Just wearing the high heels.
I mean, that's pain enough.
That is pain enough, please.
But I remember like one time I made like these fairy wings.
Okay.
Out of like construction paper and decorated them. And like I asked my mother to like pin them to the back of my shirt, and I was like in the house pretending that I was like a fairy. And then I was like, "Oh, I want to go outside." And she was like, "Oh, you can't go outside with those on."
There was an episode of the Drew Carey Show where Drew's older brother, I think, is a crossdresser.
I think so, yeah.
Some to that effect.
Yeah.
And I remember it was a flashback episode, and the kid playing Drew Carey's older brother was in this. I think the mother ran a beauty salon. I think. I again, this is just one of those like tiny memories, and I just distinctly remember the kid flouncing around saying, "Look at me, I'm a big, beautiful woman in this flouncy little like I don't want to call it a schmachta, a hair cutter's apron."
Oh, okay.
And just flouncing around.
Right.
And I'm like, I would wear that.
Oh, yeah.
I would wear something like that. And it wasn't until Rocky Horror that I first had my face painted. And then after Rocky Horror, it was just like, I want to be Ursula one year for Halloween. I want to be Cruella. Like 2008 was when I initially started drag. And it's just been an evolution ever since. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's our little pride moment.
It's a little pride moment for each of us.
All right. So.
For you, it was the high school bathroom.
Please. I dreaded the high school bathroom.
Terrifying.
It was
terrifying.
Like, you know what has always been the most terrifying thing for me?
Yeah.
Has been straight, white, cisgender males.
Yes.
Have terrified me more in my life than anything else.
Anything else?
Yeah.
I agree. I 100% agree.
Like my school, most of school was spent, that was who I feared.
Yep.
That either they were gonna, hit me, punch me,
I would have to get changed. I would have to get changed in the bathroom. I would not get changed out in the open with anybody. Or if I finished early, I would be the first one dressed. Because there was no way. There were 2 reasons why I did that. I did not want anybody to see my body because I had horrendous body dysmorphia. I did not like the way I looked at all. Because I was, tall, but I was fat. And I was very, very horrifically self-conscious about my body. Now I'm not. And I would always fear looking. I would always fear like checking somebody out. And I would just need to, like, get myself out of that situation as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So
I know exactly what you went through.
yeah, it was not fun.
Not fun.
It is not fun.
So, where did we leave off?
We left off. I adore gay people. More fun than
Right,
bullfighters. That was when Arthur said, is he a little
Right.
And
Yes.
Maude says,
Yes.
"Oh yes, but once you get to know him, you'll love him."
You'll love him.
And there's a break
Mm-hmm.
because obviously everyone is cackling.
Right.
And Conrad Bain in his that face he has. He just has one of those faces where he always looks like he's confused.
Yes.
And I think he says, couldn't we just be friends?"
Yes.
And the audience again erupts with laughter.
Right.
And I think Maude says, "I expect comments like that from Arthur. I would never expect you to have a hang up." And she's again lambasting Maude.
Yes.
Like, I never expected you to have a hang up.
Right.
It's just how you are. Outside the house, you're Mr. Nice Guy.
Mm-hmm.
Inside, you're super jock.
You're super jock. Yes.
And
then Mrs. Naugatuck starts saying she doesn't know what all the fuss is about. We think highly of the gays in England.
Our country's full of them.
They're full of them.
The only one we're positive isn't a queen is the queen. I love Hermione Badley so much. I just adore her so much.
Yes. And Maude she's accusing now everybody of
prejudice.
Prejudice.
She's accusing everyone of being prejudiced.
Yes. And Carol
says,
up. She says,
"I can't be prejudiced. You can't say that about me.
I dated a gay guy. Right.
And again, Arthur just looks haplessly confused. Really?
Yeah.
Why?
And he was a great dancer, and he did
my hair for half price. And the audience again loses it. And Maude is like so self-righteous. She's like, "Carol."
Yes.
Like, I can't believe you would say something like that.
Right.
So I think at that point we come to, Arthur being Arthur.
Yeah, saying that he thinks all novelists are gay.
All novelists are gay.
And Maude says, "Well, what about
Eugene O'Neill?"
Eugene O'Neill.
And Arthur says, "Oh, well, he can't be gay. He was Irish."
He was Irish, right. He can't, yes, because obviously there's no gay Irishman.
There's no gay Irishman. No,
Sure.
heaven preserve.
Sure.
So I think at that point, Maude says the entire Notre Dame football team is gay.
He's gay.
And I think Mrs. Naugatuck says that the Notre Dame football team was Polish.
Yeah, they're Polish.
I also have written down the brown dress suit. Just that brown dress suit.
What brown dress suit?
Maude's brown dress suit.
Uh-huh.
It's a fascinating outfit. Because again, it's that very typical long vest with this outrageous, like, patterned lining. And the brown dress top and the brown dress pants. And if you notice, there was buttons going down from the bottom of her bust all the way down to her navel.
I don't remember that.
It was just one of those interesting outfits because I think Maude did not... Arthur did not like showing her breasts.
Right.
Not like showing cleavage.
Right.
So I think any time she would be able to, like, cover herself up, she would. Almost like Diane Keaton. I don't think B. Arthur liked showing all that much skin.
Yeah. Could be.
Even though, like, some directors would put her in very, like, form-fitting clothing to show off her shape.
And for in that time period, I mean, that sort of male silhouette was very popular.
Look at Katharine Hepburn.
And specifically you said Diane Keaton and like the Annie Hall look.
Yes,
was very big at around that time. Which was a very masculine silhouette.
I remember watching the interview with Katharine Hepburn and Barbara Walters. And I remember Barbara Walters asking, like, do you dress you dress very masculinely? And Katharine Hepburn said, "I dress comfortably."
Yeah.
And Barbara Walters says, do you own a skirt? And Katharine's like, "I own one skirt. I'll wear it to your funeral." And I just watched that and I'm like, yes. Why, Barbara? Why would you ask such an asinine question?
Like when she asked Clint Eastwood, "What kind of a tree would you be?"
Who asks these stupid question.
Stupid questions, yes. But she made a career out of it.
She made a career out of it, bless her heart.
So, Maude is saying that they all have a problem with Barry because he's gay, and Barry, he's sensitive, he's warm. And now Walter
says something very interesting.
Yes, he says that Barry
is your personal
gay,
homosexual.
your personal homosexual.
You're prejudiced in reverse.
Yes, she wants to be like it's like she's like, oh, look how liberal and
it's her savior complex.
Yes, here
it's Maude. Not only
here's my friend Barry who's gay.
So,
see how liberal and open and
correct,
forward thinking I am because
I have a gay friend.
I have my own personal gay. He's my own pocket gay.
So to some extent,
yes,
Walter is not wrong.
He's not wrong. Yeah, Walter says
because
you like showing off Barry.
Because once again, Maude is being shown as
she's getting called out on her shit.
She's getting called out on her bullshit. And
she starts that laugh. And it's a laugh apparently that Walter hates.
Yeah. Because not only is now Maude being the white savior to the black community, she's now being the straight savior to the gay community.
Right. And Maude, she starts saying that this is like the last time that she laughed like this
was when Ford was in the White House and you said, now we'll get straight talk.
Yes.
And the audience had a good laugh over that one.
Yes.
Because apparently Ford was not a straight talker.
No. Could barely put sentences together.
Well, I mean, I think the last two presidents that we've had have had a very difficult time putting words together. How far we have fallen. Yeah. How far we continue to fall.
Yeah. As we watch episodes like this of Maude, we realize very little's changed.
We're still here 50 years later, kids.
Yep.
50 years later, still here.
Still here.
So at that point, Maude then says everybody has a hang up, and at that point, everybody starts arguing. Yes. And it's Carol talking over Maude, and Maude talking over Mrs. Naugatuck, and Mrs. Naugatuck talking over Walter, and Arthur just everyone is arguing, and then the doorbell rings.
And actually, before they even started the fight, Walter, he did make a comment that he says he reserves the right to dislike anyone.
Yes. Because Walter, I truly believe, just did not like Barry.
He just didn't principle. He didn't like his personality. He didn't like his personality.
It had nothing to do with the fact that Barry was gay.
Right.
Had everything to do with the fact that Barry is rude.
He was rude.
Which we come to find out
is true
after the fact.
So the doorbell rings, and of course it's Barry.
And Maude is like, everybody, be quiet. Not a word. Just
quiet. Shut up.
Yep.
And she opens the doorbell and she's like, Barry, darling.
Of course. Has that typical quintessential Maude fashion.
And Barry's like, oh, what a day I've had. And Maude's telling, well, now you're just going to have a quiet evening
and as
with friends.
And as Maude brings him in, she's like rubbing his back and like being all smiles, but like behind his back, just like shooting daggers at everybody. Like, not a word. Yes. It was hysterical. I enjoyed that quite much. That was quite muchly. I enjoyed.
So then we have the commercial break.
Yes.
And when we come back, Barry is joking and he's telling a story, and they're all laughing. And he tells Walter that he's a very lucky man.
Yes, and Walter has been silent for much of the evening. For much of the evening. And
Maude makes an excuse for him.
Saying that he's having one of his silent moods. And then Barry says, oh, well, you're a very lucky woman.
You're a very lucky woman, yes.
And I think at that point, Maude says something to the effect of he had a caraway seed stuck in his teeth and he accidentally sewed his lips together.
Right.
Calling back, obviously, to the fact that
of
the floss with the needle.
So now we get into a little bit of a bit here.
Yes.
Barry wants Maude to tell this joke. About the
wide-mouthed frog. So Maude initially is, she doesn't want to say the joke. She's like no, I don't want to do it.
Right.
But Arthur is interested. Carol's interested. They all want to hear the joke. So the joke basically goes, this wide-mouthed frog doesn't know what to feed her baby. She's still pregnant. She's had the baby, and now she just doesn't know what to feed it. Right. So she goes up to the wide-mouthed frog, goes to a giraffe, and says, with this big wide mouth, "What do you feed your baby?" And, goes to the giraffe, and the giraffe says,
says,
I
grass.
feed mine grass.
Yes.
And she does this little hand motion with her ear.
Yes,
Just
yes.
some of that effect. And
then she goes to the monkey.
then she goes to the monkey, and
Same
the monkey
question.
says, bananas.
Bananas.
And again, she does the arm
Yes.
motion, like under the arm, scratching the armpit.
And then she goes to the lion. Asks
Well,
the same
actually,
question.
before that, Arthur laughs, and, Maude says, well, wait, Arthur, there's
Yes,
more.
There's more.
So she says, the wide-mouthed frog goes to a lion.
To the lion.
And again asks, what do you feed your
Your
baby?
baby with the wide
With the
mouth.
wide mouth again.
Yeah.
And every time I do the wide mouth, I always think of Joan Crawford. I do. I always think of Joan Crawford. And, goes to the lion and then asks, what do you feed your baby? And the lion says, wide-mouthed frogs. So Maude goes from really wide mouth to really small mouth and goes, oh, really? And just, again, pantomimes the wide mouth to the small mouth. And everyone laughs, and it's very, very cute, very, very
physical
silly.
joke.
Very physical
Very
joke.
physical joke. And
she says it's silly, and they
heard it at a luncheon.
At a luncheon.
Where the chairperson did when the moon comes
when
over
the
the
moon comes over the mountains.
Yes.
She was 5'2" and had a 63-inch chest.
Right. And she
you
could really project.
And she could really project. And Barry says, well, she had to get the moon over those mountains.
Over those
And there's a laugh.
Yeah,
And,
Walter says, I heard that joke in 3rd grade.
And then
And of
Barry
course,
says,
Barry takes that as opportunity to say, "Oh, you got that far?"
Yep.
So
we're really sort of finding out that Barry is not exactly the nicest person,
right? Because he didn't have to call out Walter.
I mean, not for nothing. You've been invited to this person's house before, and like on the one hand, I understand Walter being a little sensitive, Walter being a little but at the same time. Why would you continue to poke fun at somebody who clearly doesn't want to be made fun of?
Right.
Like, I'm going to use this as an example, and I hope to Christ he doesn't listen to this. My friend Ryan was down from Boston recently, and I have been friends with Ryan for the last 24 years. Oh. And we've had a great friendship. I love him like a brother, and he is so easy to make fun of. He is one of those people that is just so blindingly sensitive about everything that if you just say that we'll send him into a tizzy. And me, his girlfriend, and our other friend Devin, it was me, Devin, and Ryan. We've all known each other for 20 some odd years. And me, Devin, and Emily were just talking, and Emily mentions how Ryan does not like to have semi-cold food when he goes out to eat.
Okay.
And he's like, I don't like when everybody gangs up on me. And I'm like, we are not ganging up on you, but you are making it so easy for us to do just that. But again, it's one of those things where we have an established relationship. We can make fun of each other in that way. They have made fun of me for being a little loose. They have made fun of me for flirting with anything that has a pulse and a penis. I have made fun
especially
of
if they're your type.
If they're my type, which
I've learned. I've
apparently
learned
I have one of those. Apparently I have a type.
Spotted that right. Sussed that right out.
And it's just, again, it's one of those things where you have an established relationship with somebody.
Yes.
You can make fun of them in that way because there is that established connection.
Yes.
Barry and Walter do not have that established. We know someone who's like that, where if you make fun of them too much, they'll get offended.
Oh, yes.
We know someone very well like that. Mm-hmm. God forbid you get on her bad side.
Oh, yes. Oh, my.
So, again, establishing a connection with someone is a way to have the jokes with them. Yes. Not establishing a connection with someone is a way to get right under their skin and piss them off.
Right. Absolutely.
So, I think at that point, Walter's
Arthur wants a picture.
No, Walter mentions the School of Hard Knocks because
that's right.
He learned everything out there.
Out there, yes.
And Barry says, I know, in the School of Hard Knocks.
That's when Arthur wants a picture.
He wants a picture, and he has a celebrity wall.
Yes.
And Barry's like, "Oh, who were the celebrities on your wall?" And
now you think he would have said John Wayne?
At least John Wayne would have been mentioned, especially after that one episode. That was all we were talking about was John Wayne.
But no, he doesn't. We don't hear John Wayne, but he says Andy Donatelli.
Andy Granatelli.
Granatelli.
Andy Granatelli.
Who's Andy Granatelli?
Let's find out. Who is Andy Granatelli?
And of course, the other person I think was Jonas Salk's nephew.
Yes,
Jonas Salk did the polio vaccine, right?
I think
or some vaccine, right?
I think so.
But Jonas Salk's nephew in a bathing suit.
Yes. In a bathing
suit.
So Andy Granatelli, we've actually gone over him before. He was the most prominent. Most prominent as the CEO of STP, as well as a major figure in automobile racing.
Oh, okay.
Because Andy Granatelli was mentioned in another episode where STP stickers were mentioned.
Oh, okay.
And I can't remember what episode it was. It was the episode where I think Walter gets into a car accident.
Oh, okay.
That
makes sense.
Oh, no. Maude got into a car accident, and I think Maude then turns to Walter and says, "If you wanted something involving cars, you should have married Andy Granatelli."
Okay, so
that was
one of the pictures Arthur has on his celebrity wall,
and Maude quips that it's 3 of the patients who survived.
So they call Mrs. Naugatuck. I think Arthur calls her to take a picture. Yes,
Arthur calls Mrs. Naugatuck to take a picture.
And, now she's talking about photography, so she has to, of course,
mention
Alexander Graham Bell.
Mentions Alexander Graham Bell. And Carol has this, cat-eating grin on her face, where she's like, "Mrs. Naugatuck, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone."
Right.
And Mrs. Naugatuck then says...
Oh, she says, "Well, yes, because... he had to call me up to tell me how to use the camera." She always finds a way.
Always finds a way. Always finds a way.
You think she would have said something about it was like Mr. Kodak or something, but no. Nope. Alexander Graham Bell.
Well, I mean, that's honestly part of Mrs. Naugatuck's charm. It's part of her charm where she just lies incessantly.
Yes,
lies incessantly.
Doesn't know how to tell the truth.
Does not know how to tell the truth at all.
Okay, so now we get into a bit where they're posing for the
They're
picture.
all trying to jockey for position. Mrs. Naugatuck is saying, "Do this, do that, do this, do that." She's moving them all over.
No, Mrs. Finley, go here. No, Carol, go over there. Now,
the tall one in the back.
The tall one in the middle. And it's
middle.
Then she makes them go back to the way they were initially.
And Maude finally snaps and says, "Enough, Mrs. Naugatuck.
Get on with it."
And she says, "No need to get snippy."
Yes. And so then Barry has to grab Walter,
puts his arm around
the
Walter.
shoulder to get him into the picture.
Yes, and through the entire process, Walter just looks like a curmudgeon.
Yeah,
he is none too pleased about any of this.
Yes, and Barry makes a line that, "Oh, don't worry, Walter,
I never make passes at men with mustaches." And everyone laughs.
Yes, and Walter gets mad. And he storms off into the kitchen.
Did Dorothy Parker say that?
She said, "Men never make passes at girls who wear glasses."
That's what it was.
Yeah, if you ever want to know anything about Dorothy Parker, ask Frank. He's he's read all her books.
Oh,
he loves
good.
Dorothy Parker. He loves Dorothy Parker. But that was her famous line.
So
men never make passes at girls who wear glasses.
Girls who wear glasses.
Yes.
So at that point, Walter storms up into the kitchen, and Maude says, "Oh, you just hit a sore spot with his mustache. It's molting."
Yes, his mustache is molting.
So Maude goes into the kitchen, and she's just like, "What is wrong with you? Why are you doing that? What am I going to tell Barry that you're doing in here?" And what does Walter say?
He tell him I'm whipping up some fudge. Which I was like...
That's horrendous.
Yeah.
That's horrendous.
And of course, that goes back to that, that old stereotype of calling homosexuals fudge packers. There's actually they did there was a little short film. There was a little short film.
Cringy is what it
is. So-and-so's dad is a fudge packer. It was Billy's dad is a fudge packer.
I guess
It's like a little short LGBTQ.
Okay.
Funny movie. I think the actor who played Ben on the old Queer as Folk.
Okay.
I think he's in that movie.
Michael Ian Black?
No. The Ben was he was the professor who had HIV.
Oh, the professor. Okay. Yes. Gotcha.
And he's a quite well known out actor. I can't remember his name. But anyway, he's in that movie. I think it's Billy's dad is a fudge packer.
Okay.
And it's a cute funny movie. But yes.
That just, it makes me feel unclean.
Yes, definitely.
It does. It makes me feel unclean.
So, do you ever just get that not fresh feeling?
Never.
No?
No.
Oh.
Do you?
No. No.
It's just, was that, I, for me personally, when I was younger and I would hear like a joke like that, I would think, do gay men really like fudge that much? Like, I mean, I enjoy peanut butter fudge as much as the next person, but this is ridiculous.
Honestly, I don't really like fudge. Oh, I love fudge. It's a little too sweet for me.
Oh, whenever my family goes to Disney, they always get like this box of Rocky Road fudge and peanut butter fudge. It's just, I'm never that crazy about fudge. You know what I love? Well, I have a sweet tooth. That's why.
I love those turtle things, like the caramel with the nuts.
Oh yes.
Chocolate is like dripped on top. I love those.
I don't know why they got the where did the term?
Well, because it looks like a turtle. The shape.
Are they just truffles?
No. They're flat. They're flat, like a pecan turtle.
Because I know that there's turtle cheesecake that has like the nuts and the caramel drizzle and the chocolate.
No, this is the candy.
Drizzle.
This is the candy.
I think I know what you're talking about.
It looks like a sort of
looks like a turtle
shape.
Where it's like got the nuts and the chocolate.
Because the nuts they lay it out. They lay the nuts out like sticking out like the legs, and then the caramel goes on top, and then the chocolate it gets dipped
then gets dipped in chocolate.
I love those.
Well, I know what to get you for your birthday.
And you know what to get me now. So Maude is like, she wants to know what's bothering Walter.
Well, first she called out Walter on being like making that remark.
Yes, she did. Yes.
When does Mrs. Naugatuck come in? She comes in after they have a sit down.
They have this whole discussion. And Maude, she wants him to come back out, and she's saying that she's giving her oath that he won't.
Yeah, you have my solemn oath that he's not going to
insult you anymore. And Walter wants him to apologize.
Yes. And I think at that point, Mrs.
I have something. There was something about cheese doodles.
Cheese doodles?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yes, there was something about shoving cheese doodles, and Walter putting up his dukes.
The fight happens after.
Oh, because because Arthur came in too.
Did he?
Yes, Arthur came in. Oh no, maybe I went too far.
I think you went a little too far. You went too far. So while they're having their little sit down, Maude gives her solemn oath that Barry will not insult her, and I think Mrs. Naugatuck comes in saying, "Oh, my favorite lovebirds."
Yes.
And, Maude shoves her out of the room, like, abruptly. And she says, "Oh, a female Frank Sinatra you are." And it is very, very interesting to say that because Frank Sinatra was not a fun actor to work with.
No? I don't know.
He was ruthless.
Oh, really?
He was, I remember watching, like, a documentary or a mockumentary of something pertaining to, they were filming, Robin and the Seven Hoods. Mm-hmm. And just, Frank Sinatra was awful to work with.
Oh.
That's what it was. It was, Feud. It was Feud.
Oh, I never saw that.
It was good.
Uh-huh.
It was good. I'm not going to say it was great, but it was good.
Okay.
And I remember, like, the director who directed, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane was also directing, I think it was Robin and the Seven Hoods or some movie with Frank Sinatra.
Right.
And he was just awful to work with. And if you read like certain documentaries from certain actors and actresses, they also say the same thing. He was awful to work with.
Wow.
He had such a humongous, he had a couple of things that were humongous.
Yes.
famously one of the famous large penises of Hollywood.
Right.
But he also had a very large ego and was belligerent to a number of directors and a number of assistants.
Wow.
So yeah, he was not pleasant to work with.
Right.
So yes, they exit. Maude gives a solemn oath, and Walter goes up to Barry and says, "I'm sorry, I behaved so bad." And immediately Barry says, "Badly."
Yes.
I would imagine they would have taught you that in the School of Hard Knocks.
Right.
And Walter immediately goes on the defensive.
Yes.
And then that's when he says,
he
"Put up your
Put up your dukes." And that's when
Arthur races up to Walter, takes him aside, and says, "Walter, what are you, crazy? Look at the size of him. You want to get knocked out by a sissy?" Just too much.
Yes.
Too much. And I think at that point, Maude says, "Well, Arthur, it's time to leave. Carol, go upstairs." And Carol turns to Maude and goes, "Are you going to come upstairs and tuck me in?"
Right.
I cannot emphasize this enough. I adore Adrienne Barbeau. I adore Adrienne. She is my favorite Catwoman. She is my favorite daughter. She is my favorite Rizzo. I love and adore her so much. She's such another underrated actress. So Carol goes upstairs, and Mrs. Naugatuck says, where should I go? Or Maude says to Mrs. Naugatuck, "Where do you think you're going?" And again, you see the height difference, because Maude stares down at Mrs. Naugatuck, and she says, "I think I'm gonna go into the kitchen and count my blessings."
That's right.
And she skirts off. And then we have just the three. We have Barry,
Maude, and
Walter.
And Maude tells Walter he's making a fool of himself.
Yeah, she says, "If you're going to continue to make a fool of yourself, here you go. Now's your opportunity."
And Walter tells Barry that he tells him that, "I don't like you as a person.
I'm going to kick you out.
Yeah.
I'm only going to kick you out because I don't like you as a person. It has nothing to do with your sexuality."
Right.
And Barry's like, I respect
understand
that. I understand.
I understand.
And Walter and Maude have this sort of puzzled look on their face, like, "Really? You're okay with that?"
Yeah.
And Barry says, "I am not an easy person to get along with."
Yeah, he knows that he's kind of an impossible person to be around, and he said he also
I pick on you because you're so defensive.
Right.
Have you ever picked on someone because you know that they're going to get defensive about it?
No.
Neither have I.
No. The only thing I do is I do it with you, with our friend Stella.
With our friend
we
Stella.
have a rapport.
We have a rapport with
and I
each other.
expect you to give it back to each other. It's we expect
But again, we have established that relationship.
Exactly.
We have established that connection. Excuse me. So at that point, Barry says it was bound to happen that
bound to happen.
that Maude was going to become very good friends with me. And Maude's like, "What do you mean?" So Barry points out,
and he says Walter's jealous.
Walter's the jealous husband.
The jealous husband.
So they both look at him and go, "The jealous husband."
Yeah. And Barry's explaining that he fills a need for Maude that Walter can't fill.
Yep. Calls himself her intellectual lover. And Maude's just like, "Oh, Barry, oh, you're so right. Oh, Walter, I love you."
Yeah.
And then Walter looks at the camera and goes, "Maybe I am."
And Maude's like, jealous?
How would I be jealous of Barry? And then she starts doing that laugh again. And Barry looks at her like,
"What's so funny?"
And then Maude goes, "I wish I was dead."
She automatically made me think of shrimp.
Yes, exactly. God, I wish I was dead.
And Dr. Jonathan Newman on Golden Girls.
Jonathan Newman on Golden Girls. So at that point, Barry now is getting offended and says, "We're dead, Maude."
Yes.
And I think he says, "We're dead with the way that you're biased. That could be the case."
Yes.
And Maude says, "I don't have a biased bone in my body." And
he says, "No, right.
They're all in your head.
All in your head.
You have a biased bone in your head."
Yes.
And he mentions guilt-ridden liberals.
Right.
Which Maude is.
Right.
So,
Yes.
at that point, Maude gets rather angry. And she says, I'm getting angry.
Let me tell you something, Barry.
And
Which
again,
is telling.
The audience erupts with laughter.
Yes.
And, at that point, Barry then leaves and says, Maude, about the biases you don't have, let it bother you.
Yes.
Let it bother the hell out of you.
Right.
And exits.
And he leaves. And, which I guess is real. It's, it's pointed out that, Walter was right all this time, that Maude was just using Barry to fulfill that need to be like, oh, see how liberal I am. Here's my personal gay.
Yep.
And that's all really Barry was to her. It wasn't really
honestly,
true friend.
It's the same thing that I see with a lot of racist white people that will say, "Oh, well, I have black friends. I have black friends. Oh, I dated a black guy. And
right.
If you are not part of the solution, you're part of the problem."
Yep.
So, unfortunately, Maude, in this instance,
she's part of the problem.
Yep. And, she says, oh, I feel so humiliated.
Yeah, what have I done?
And, Walter comforts her, says, we all have biases, and we all need to learn what we can do to deal with them. And, I think they have a back and forth about grammar and verbiage.
Right.
Because I have Maude saying as well as we can. Not as good as we can.
Right, well, yes.
But I think Walter then turns to her and says, you have the least amount of hang-ups.
Less hang-ups than anyone I know. Yes. And Walter says, he's trying to cheer up. He says, why don't we go out?
Go out and have a good dinner.
Have a good dinner.
Or a well dinner.
Yes.
And it was very, very cute.
And now we're approaching the really volatile
this was not
part of the episode.
This was not a fun part of the episode to hear. So
Walter asks, do you want French?
You want French? Italian, you want Spanish? Italian? And, Maude then says, well, why don't we go to Wong Fu's and eat chinks?
Yes, I wasn't going to say the word.
I was going to say the word.
I was not going to say the word.
It's a
very offensive word.
It's a very offensive word.
Yes.
And actually, we have had, me, Tony, and his husband Frank have had a number of conversations about how verbiage was used during the 70s and how some verbiage was used even in present day. There are still people that will use that term to refer to Chinese food.
Yes.
And it's incredibly offensive.
Yes.
And,
yes.
it carries the same level of derogatoriness as that one word that will never be mentioned at any time on this show.
The N-word.
The N-word is what we're referring to. And it stands to reason because we have had a number of conversations where it's like, oh, it was a different time. And, the other thing that we have a conversation about is people who have dementia and who have Alzheimer's. And, there are certain people, and I've seen video proof of this, where it would be a black nurse and a white patient that would spit at the nurse, that would call them racial terms and whatnot. And, it really becomes one of those things where it's like, where do the excuses stop? Where do we say, no, you cannot refer to somebody in that way?
Yeah, well, but somebody with Alzheimer's dementia, they don't have any control.
Exactly.
They don't have any control.
And now you look at people in present day that still use these terms and still use these terms.
But if you don't have Alzheimer's and dementia, there's no excuse.
There is no excuse.
There's no excuse. I mean, somebody with Alzheimer's and dementia, they're not in their right mind.
Yes.
Medically. So,
and it becomes very interesting because again, we've had this conversation a number of times when it comes to context and how a word, be it in English, be it in any other language, is used in specific contexts. Like, I'll give a great example. There was the episode of The Golden Girls with, it was Dorothy and Sophia, and the tree had fallen on their side, but it was the neighbor's responsibility. And, they had gone to the guy, they had gone to the neighbor and said, look, you're going to move this whether you like it or not. And, the gentleman, retorts at them saying, you Italians sure are, whatever it was. And, the way that it was performed and acted, like Dorothy was incensed, like, you Italians?
Right.
it really comes down to the context in which the word is used.
It was also, I just saw another episode. It was the one where they go to the psychologist because they're not getting along.
Yes.
And Dorothy, she's reading. Rose put Dorothy's ad in the personals instead of the classified. And Dorothy, she's reading an ad and from a guy who's looking for a woman.
History professor seeking non-smoking Oriental woman.
And we know now it's like you don't refer to a person as Oriental.
Yes, you do not.
It's like a rug can be Oriental.
A rug can be Oriental.
Vase can be Oriental.
A person cannot
be Oriental.
And now that you mention that, there's also that song from Avenue Q, Everyone's a Little Bit Racist. And that song is chock full of racial indignities. And, again, it really comes down to the context in which the verbiage is being used. In this instance, it was used to refer to a specific type of food. It is still incredibly offensive, and it is still an incredibly offensive word, but the context in which was to only further prove that Maude does have biases.
Right.
And, because even Maude said, I will never say another prejudice bias thing as long as I live.
Yeah, and then she comes out with that. She comes out with that.
So, it really is one of those, I don't want to call it brilliant, but it's one of those things that I loved so much about Norman Lear. Because he will insist upon pointing out the hypocrisy.
Yes.
He will insist upon pointing out that there are two sides, and that both sides invariably, in one form or another, are wrong.
Right.
And this was one of those instances where Maude was wrong.
Yeah.
It got the laugh.
Yes.
The audience still laughed, but that was because, again, it was that time period where people will use those words with reckless abandon.
Yeah.
So here we are trying to use this podcast as a way to not only point out the hypocrisy of both liberalism and conservatism while going over these 50-year-old episodes of Maude, because this was 74, so we're not at the 20-year mark. We're not at the 50-year mark just yet,
but we're close.
We're very close.
Very close.
So it's very, very apparent that that was why that was done.
Right.
But I also appreciated the fact that it was Wong Fu. Because that means that they were going into the city.
Oh, did it?
Well, to Wong Fu, thanks for everything, Julie Newmar.
Oh. Could be.
That was what I heard Wong Fu and I was just like, oh, that's interesting.
I doubt. I'm sure they had a local place called. I'm sure they had a local place called.
I'm sure they had a local place called Wong Fu's.
So, there's a break. Then we come back and
we have a prologue.
Yes,
so
we have a prologue.
Maud is in bed. We're in the bedroom. Walter's
reading.
She's reading. Yes, she's reading. And Walter says, "Oh, what are you reading?" And she says, "Joe Namath's article."
Yes.
And like Walter says, "Oh, you're going to come down to my level?" And she turns to Walter and says, "I'll make a deal with you. I'll go out and get you a helmet." Obviously, incentivizing that. Is incentivizing a word? I think incentivizing.
I think it is.
Yeah, incentivizing is a word. Incentivizing to Walter, like, if you get a helmet, we'll make love, and you'll find out what it's like to make love with a helmet on. And she then says, if you go out and get me Joe Namath. Was he as attractive as everybody thinks he is?
He was a good-looking guy.
Okay.
He was a good-looking guy. He's very much in that 70s good-looking way.
Gotcha.
You didn't see like guys in the media, arts, entertainment, all that, like the way they look now. If you don't have like 1% body fat and you're completely like shredded and abs and everything like that, it's like you're worthless.
Yes. There's a drag queen that I'm friends with. Her name is Dottie Spartans. Every time she will post pictures of a specific body type, and it's a body type that I am quite a fan of.
I bet I can guess what it looks like.
It is
a little bit cubbish,
a
bearish.
A little bit bearish. I mean, and
hairy chest,
Sort of. We'll go with that.
Weird.
Will you shut up? Will you shut up?
The lady protests too much, I think.
But I mean, they will post. I think they posted it like the last couple of days, where it's like, just so you know, if you're going to enter my DMs, this is how I look. And you know what? I'll see if I can find a picture. And so help me God, if you say what I think you're going to say, I'm going to punch.
Of course, I'm going to say it.
Of course you are.
Of course, I'm going to say it. You know me. You know me too well.
I know you too well. Is right.
You know me too well at this point.
Hold on.
But you know, the '80s. That was the body type, like Joe Namath, Burt Reynolds. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your type. To a T.
Idiot.
To a T.
If you have this body, please
I can see your
me.
knees moving apart already.
Stop it, woman. Now I'm closing my legs up. Welcome to the last episode of God Will Get You for That, Walter.
Where every episode is the last episode.
Every episode is
and
the
actually,
last
I just saw
episode.
somebody posted this guy was really popular. Jim Palmer. He was an athlete and he posed for Jockey.
Okay.
So
which was almost like the equivalent of Playgirl?
No. Jockey shorts, Jockey underwear.
Oh, okay.
They started a big campaign where they used him like, you know, and he'd just be in like the Jockey underwear.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of use out of those ads. Because, you know.
Well, I mean, years ago we didn't have the internet, so you had to use the men's section.
Use your imagination. You know, it was that. It was the Sears catalog, the underwear section,
the underwear section,
JCPenney's catalog.
JCPenney's catalog.
Then I progressed to the International Male catalog.
Oh, wow.
And if you were lucky, sometimes the bathing suits were like mesh.
Really tight, and really.
They were mesh, and they were see through.
Yep.
So. Good times.
I'm sure they were.
Good times, yes. We made do with what we had, pussycat.
Well, I mean, that is correct. I know for certain that I have given my family's computer a number of viruses in my youth.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
So that was we do want to disclaim that, like, towards the, of course we do this at the end of the episode. We should have done this at the beginning of the episode. But there is the disclaimer that there is an offensive term about Chinese Americans and Chinese individuals.
And we do not
condone the use of the term. We do not condone the use of any derogatory term in any sort of context or anything that could be viewed as pejorative.
Mm-hmm.
That's your SAT word for the day.
There you go.
And we here promote positivity, and we promote lightness, we promote
diversity,
inclusion,
all those good things,
and a strong focus on education and lack of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
We try to be as forthcoming and as educational and entertaining as possible when it comes to the show. And we hope you're enjoying yourselves while you're listening to us.
No, we enjoyed ourselves today.
I know I did. I definitely enjoyed myself during this episode. If you would like to hear more, God Will Get You for That, Walter, you can where all podcasts are found. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube at God Will Get You for That, Walter. You can also find us on Instagram at Finley's Friendly Appliances. Where can they find you?
They can find me everywhere. That's Toni Homeperm, and that's Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram.
The cuckoo clock.
Don't bother with Twitter. I think I've had enough of it.
Yeah, Twitter's good for a couple of things. Porn being one of them. And also, surprisingly enough, a lot of voice acting gigs on that one.
Oh, are there?
There are a lot of voice acting gigs that you can find on that. I've found, because there's a lot of people that are they don't know where else to advertise, and it sort of falls in line with like direct marketing.
Okay.
So
there you go. And
that's what I've been using it for.
Where can they find you?
That Tomcat. That is all one word, and that is cat with 2 T's.
Mm-hmm. Very important.
Very important, because when people
without that extra
T, all you're doing is finding Tom and Jerry.
They're not finding you.
They're not finding me. They're finding that gray cat with the white stomach, who always gets outsmarted by that brown mouse.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, at Just So We're Queer, at the show that me, Stella, and LaBelle and Ruby Thursday did last Thursday, hilariously enough.
I thought it was
Chronic, Ruby Thursday, they're baby.
Oh, okay.
They're baby. They're still learning their names.
Oh,
and what they want to present themselves as.
Oh, gotcha.
I had made the joke like that's cat with 2 T's, because if you look up that Tomcat, you'll find just Tom and Jerry. And Stella immediately says, "I am your Jerry," and I'm like,
true.
That's accurate.
That's very accurate.
That is 100% accurate.
I would agree with that.
Yes, you can find me at That Tomcat on all forms of social media. ThatTomcat.com. My LinkedIn. Just all the stuff. The what is the word? The thing with the tree.
Linktree.
Linktree. How foolish.
There you go.
I said LinkedIn, and I'm like, no, that's not the word. It's Linktree.
Linktree.
We thank you so much for listening, and you will hear us again on another episode of God Will Get You for That, Walter. Good night, guys.
Goodbye.